I'd say that's the same way as me as well. Interesting enough, 7 is the number I believe for completion. So, when you look at 7, I feel just perfectly right. Not too much, not too little, just this is right for me. This is the right space for me. And judging from what y'all just said, seems like this is the right space to y'all, for y'all as well. So I want to take the time to introduce myself. My name is Sean Harris, aka Flow Essence. And first, since y'all gave me a round of applause, I want to do the same. Give yourselves a round of applause just for being here, being part of this event, and sharing this space. Today, I want to take y'all on a journey that is vibrant and filled with the world of hip hop, based on its transformative power, enhancing our creativity and conversation. Today, I like to discuss the topic called Kaleidoscope Thinking, boosting creativity and conversation through freestyle and improvisation. And I got a brother of mine who I'm going to introduce in a little bit. He's sitting in the back just chilling. He's been up since 4 in the morning. But I'm going to introduce him at the end. Y'all going to see why after I go through this long 40-minute, no, I'm kidding. As I go through this short speech, I'm going to try to keep it quick. But I wanted to talk about, what kaleidoscope thinking is, the reason why I chose this topic and how to speak on it. When you hear kaleidoscope thinking, what do you think? Anybody? Colors, right? Colors. What's another one? Like shapes, patterns, and you feel like there's this ever-changing pattern of shapes and ideas, right? And I look at it similar to life. Like how many times has this things, your plans change, life has changed in front of you, and it just feels like it's never ending. My cousin used to always say, if it's one thing after another, you know what I'm saying? It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Life is constantly changing around us and evolving around us. And I look at it the same way as a kaleidoscope, these ever-changing patterns of intricacy. And so when I look at that, it also makes you look at how our minds are capable as well. See, our minds are capable of also creating beautiful, intricate patterns of thought. But it all starts here. And so how do we unlock that part of our brain at will? How do we tap into our brains to form new patterns of thought in the present moment? When life hits you, when life seems like it's chaotic and it seems like everything is going all different directions, our thoughts can sometimes be muddled and we feel stuck. Sometimes we feel like, man, I feel like I can't go anywhere. We're working on a project and something changes. The project itself changes. We're working on trying to meet a deadline and that deadline changes. It gets moved up. So our brains become more scattered because of the chaos that surrounds us. And sometimes we have to learn how to look at things in the present moment through the eyes of a kaleidoscope, looking at it from a perspective of these ever-changing patterns in our lives may form to create something beautiful and unique for us. And it might be something that we might actually need to help us grow instead of something that is going to stifle us in the long run. So I'd like to introduce you to the world of freestyle and cyphers. See, for those who are unfamiliar, a cypher is a gathering where artists take turns showcasing their skills, often through spontaneous movement, improvised rhymes, and passionate in their creativity. It's chaotic, it's raw, most importantly, it's deeply collaborative. See, imagine a circle where individuals are feeding off of each other's energy. They're breaking down barriers and igniting sparks of creativity all in real time. I remember the first time I went to a cypher at Freedom Expression Tunnel. It's right here in NC State. And I recommend anybody to, please, if you every Monday night, Freedom Expression Tunnel, please go check it out for yourselves. But the first time that I went, and I want to give a backstory. I'm a hip hop artist. How many people love hip hop music, rap, all that stuff? Okay, somebody throw out, who's your favorite artist? Houston told me that his was Gunna. Anybody? Travis Scott. Love Travis Scott. It's the first time I saw him was crazy as my daughter's Fortnite. How crazy is that? First time I ever heard of him. But anyway, we said?
I was saying the same.
Oh, Travis Scott?
Yeah.
Oh, Sam, we got some Travis Scott fans for sure. Hey, okay, all right. Nah, I was about to do a song from Travis Scott, but I was like, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna embarrass myself today. But the first time I had, went to a cypher, everybody was sitting in a circle. Not even sitting, they were standing. And they were just throwing out bars, throwing out lines, talking about all different types of stuff, all off the top of the head. So imagine like you go to a Travis Scott concert, and he's like, you know what? I got all these songs. I know y'all want to hear my catalog, but guess what? We ain't doing none of that today. I'm going to do everything off the top. That would be impressive, right? And he starts doing songs off the top of the dome, off his head, just freestyle. And I remember like these guys were coming up with bars, and I'm a writer, so I used to love to write stuff. You know what I'm saying? I would write all my rhymes, and I'm thinking, man, I got some bars, I got some heavy stuff. And I see these dudes, they're doing it off the top of their head like it's nothing, and their bars were better than mine. So, but I was low key kind of like, hey, how did they do that? But at the same time, I was also mesmerized because it was this free flow of energy, of collective shared space. When you would see these artists, they weren't thinking about what they were going to say. They weren't thinking about how they were going to say it. They weren't thinking about, man, does this sound right in my head? Does this not sound right in my head? They were just living in the present moment. They were literally living as if there was no tomorrow and there was no yesterday. And when I saw that, it hit me and it made me realize life is really about being in the present moment. And so for me, hip hop in its truest form is creativity in that present moment. It's unlocking the full potential of your mind. You see, science found that when we are being creative, and I mean like really allowing ourselves to be truly creative, our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and y'all can look that up. I try saying that 3 times, however you want. It was tough for me to say. It is responsible for selective attention and impulse control. But when we tap into our creative side, that prefrontal cortex, it shuts down, and it allows our default mode network to make new connections. So like imagine it like, like your part of your brain is on a leash. And, when you tap into your creative side, it's like taking off that leash and allowing yourself and your creativity and your imagination to just completely run wild. You ever seen like a dog and you're walking in the neighborhood? How many people got pets? Any dogs? You ever seen a dog? You got him on the leash, and he's being nice. He's being well behaved. You meet somebody, and they petting the dog, and they saying hi to him, and he's nice, but you could tell he's looking at that leash like, as soon as she loosen her grip, I'm taking off. I'm gone. I had a dog. I was petting the dog, and you know how like you go and you rub the dog and stuff like that. I don't know if the leash was already loose or not, but I went to rub the dog's head, and the dog just slipped out the leash and took off running. And she was like, oh my gosh, he's running down the street. And he started running all around, like he's running through the neighborhood, he's running into traffic, almost got hit by a car 3 times. And he was just so excited because he was like, I'm free, ain't nobody gonna catch me, you can't stop me, I'm fastest. Like he was just exploring everything that he ever could. And that's what happens when our brain, when that prefrontal cortex, it shuts down and we allow our imaginations to run wild. We literally allow our brains to say, and that part of our brain, which is creative, to say, I'm free. There is nothing that I can't do. There's no limit that can bound me. There is nothing that I can achieve. And so, when we look at that from a creative standpoint, it doesn't matter what you have going on in life. Sometimes, it is important for us to shut off that prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that is like, no, you can't do that, or that's not good enough, or this is impossible, and just allow our minds to be completely and creatively free. Why does this matter? I mentioned it earlier, but when we are faced in a fast-paced world, we often tend to find ourselves trapped in the conventional ways of thinking. We cling to the safe ideas of structure and order, which is great, but it limits our potential. And so for me, and maybe even a lot of you here today, I struggle with being present in the moment. Due to anxiety, I'm constantly overthinking every single decision that I make, and even the things that are out of our control, tend to have a hard time with and a hard time grasping, because if I don't have control, I feel like everything can go wrong. I start thinking this could happen. If I miss this deadline, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to get, my boss is not going to, trust me with more projects. If I don't finish this school assignment, then I'm going to get a bad grade. And I'm constantly thinking about all this negative stuff that could potentially happen to me because I don't have control, or things just, anxiety takes over my life. How many people feel like that? You ain't got to answer, I know that most majority of people really do have those thoughts in our head. We have, that thought that just, we speak to ourselves and we talk to ourselves, and we, that part of ourselves that says, oh, you can't, or it's not good enough, or man, what's going to happen if I do this or I do that, right? So when it comes to freestyle rapping, to me, when I went to that cypher and I first, saw these guys just, like I said, they weren't thinking. It looked like they weren't even thinking. They were just tossing out bars after bar after bar. They were just tossing out rhymes in rhythmic form. It was poetry without even a beat. These guys were freestyling, sometimes without even a beat, yet they stayed in a rhythmic flow throughout the entire evening. And it taught me that freestyling teaches us the art of spontaneity and adaptability. It's about letting go of fear and embracing the unknown. When you're freestyling, it's all about literally being in the present moment. You don't have to worry about having the luxury of a script. You don't have to think on your feet. You just have to respond to what is happening around you. And you collaborate with your fellow artists. It's all in the blink of an eye. And so I remember, when I was in the cypher and everybody was just freestyling one after another. People were talking about their day. People were talking about what they were going through. And then that would spark a new topic, or it would spark a new conversation. It was like a conversation where somebody would literally jump on the same topic and freestyle off of what the next person what the last person just said. And the next person would do the same thing. And I remember sitting there in the circle and I was, just standing there, didn't think it would come to me. And then it finally came to me. And they were looking at me like, you gonna go, like already bopping their head because they like, he gonna spit something. And I'm like, and I couldn't think of anything because I was like, oh man, I was thinking too much. And my mind was just going and going. I was like, what if I said this wrong? And if I say this wrong, they're gonna laugh at me. Or what if I said this bar and I don't say it right? Or what if I did this? Or I've never, freestyled before. So I don't know how to, I wasn't in the present moment. And so I couldn't fully enjoy it. I couldn't fully embrace it for what it was. And so how many of y'all, and I won't ask this, but I know that when it comes to ciphers in our lives, things that change at a moment's notice, things that feel chaotic, we oftentimes, again, we feel like I've never been put in this position before, or I don't know what to do, and I feel lost and I feel stuck. And you've been given a project, right? Or you're working a specific job, and then your manager comes up to you one day and says, hey, I want you to do something you've never done before. You're like, what? I don't know how to do that. And we're constantly filled with worry because we're like, I don't know. Try starting the same way as these guys would do as freestyling. Think in the present moment. Don't think about whether or not you can or can't do it. Don't think about whether or not it's achievable, whether or not it's impossible. Just shut that part of your brain off and allow yourself to just start. A lot of times what I do is I like to free write. And I'll just, when I get a project, especially at work, I'll write down just whatever the first thing that pops into my head. That's why when I asked y'all to tell me how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, thought of the first thing that came to your mind, right? Because you were able to turn that part of your brain off and just say, I'm just going to throw it out there. Don't care about how it sounds. Don't care about how it feels. Don't care about what's going to happen next or what happened before. I'm just doing, and I'm not thinking. And that's how the cipher works. It allows you to completely and creatively immerse yourself in the present. So what are some ways in which we can, do that? Like when I look at the cipher, there are several components, and I want to break those down for you to how the cipher works and just, how freestyling works in general. One, I want to start with spontaneity. Freestyling forces you to break free from your mental constraints. You learn to trust your instincts to explore ideas as they come rather than sticking to a rigid plan. There is no outline. See, this is crucial in any creative endeavor. When we allow ourselves to be spontaneous, we open the door to unexpected insights and innovations. So when we allow our minds to just free flow, we literally open the door to new possibilities, and we also open the door to new patterns and new ways of thinking. You might be stuck on that project or stuck on that assignment or stuck at that job or stuck in life because you're looking at it from one angle, in one direction, in one perspective, which oftentimes is your own, anxious perspective. And so you're seeing this tunnel that feels like it's never ending and you don't know how to get out of it. But sometimes you got to take a step back and say, you know what? There's some other angles here. There's some more ways in which I haven't thought about. And so one of the ways to do that is to just be spontaneous in the moment. When I was, I got to tell this story because it was crazy to me. I first had my first job interview, right? I graduated high school, graduated college, and I had my first job interview, and it was for a tech company, and I was so nervous, but I knew I was prepared. because I practiced that interview. I studied the job description. I was practicing interview questions. And then the day I got into the interview, I sat down, and the guy that was interviewing me asked me none of the questions that I prepared for. As a matter of fact, he didn't even ask me questions I thought fit with my job description. First thing he asked me was, tell me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, what? And then he asked me, it was like, tell me about a time where, you had to do something and it didn't work out. And I was like, I did not prepare for any of these questions. But when I started going to the site and I started learning about freestyling, it's literally thinking on your feet. It's literally being able to pivot and adjust in the moment. And so I learned that when I'm freestyling, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying, right? I'm just might be responding to somebody that freestyled before me. They might be talking about, something that they were going through, or they might be talking about something I relate to, so I'll respond to that, but I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. And so I just did the same thing in the job interview, and to me, I was, in the job interview, and I'm thinking, man, I just BS that. Ain't no way I'm getting that job. I just said whatever I thought in my head. I got a call the same day, and it was like, yeah, you're hired. And like I said, I didn't prepare for any of the questions, because I didn't know they were going to ask those questions. It was my first interview, I didn't know about all that stuff. I seen it in the movies, but I thought that wasn't real. So it's the same thing in life. There's been many times where I have freestyled on stage, and I have been absolute dog crap. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm thinking, man, this was trash. And then I get off stage, and somebody comes to me and they be like, yo, I like that bar that you said. That was so dope. Or I really needed that, man. Thank you for sharing. That was really dope. You came off the top with that. And I'll be like, y'all like this? This was trash, in my mind. But if I was thinking about that in that moment, I would have never been able to finish it. If I was in that job interview and I was thinking about how I sounded, or is this going to be believable, or is he going to, am I going to get hired after this? I would have never made it through that interview. I would have never made it through that stage because I would have been so caught up in a narrow mindset of thinking instead of just allowing everything to be. Another point that I want to go into is adaptability. In a cipher, the rhythm and energy are constantly shifting. If one person takes a new direction, everyone else has to adapt. This mirrors real-world problems. When faced with challenges, those who can pivot and adjust their way of thinking are the ones who thrive. So when you have real-world problems, you have to be able to think on your feet and think and adapt to your situations. How many of y'all, when you're driving on the road and then somebody just cuts off in the lane and you're like, what in the world? It's just unexpected. It's sudden things that happen. You have to pivot and you have to go and switch into another lane, or you have to stop, put your brakes on. You have to think in the moment, right? And believe it or not, trust yourself and trust your experiences that you've had in life to get you through certain specific moments. My grandma always say, God don't give you more than anything you can bear. You know what I mean? And I didn't understand what that meant, but I also started to learn later on in life that He doesn't give you anything more than you can bear because you've already been prepared for the things that you are about to go through, the things that you've already been through or you're going through in the present moment. And so trust yourself and trust that you have the experience to make the right judgment call, to pivot and to adjust and to adapt to any situation that you're going through in the moment. Because that's how life works. You might get something that's thrown at you and you'd be like, man, this came out of nowhere. But it happens for a reason and it's meant to build you. It's meant to build your character and it's meant to actually help test you. And the best way to pass the test is to adapt. One of the ways we can do this is like in our professional lives. We face situations that demand flexibility, right? In our job, again, changing jobs or, changing assignments or deadlines, you know what I mean? All those different things. So those who can adapt their strategies and incorporate new data, which is new information, will lead their teams more effectively. You might be able to accomplish your goals more effectively. You might be trying to run a business and you've never run a business before, but you have an idea and you have an outline and you have a vision of where you want to go. But then as you're doing your business, you run into a block or you run into a hole and you run into something that forces change and you have to adapt with the times and grow. Well, if you don't, incorporate new information from life experiences, if you don't incorporate the things that you've already, been through or went through, or new ideas from fresh perspectives, then it's going to be hard to achieve those goals, right? Because you're limited only to the possibility of what you can see instead of what the possibilities of things that you can't see. I look at it as if you ever played like charades, anybody ever played like the game? I mean, it's a popular thing, right? There's this other game too. I forgot what it's called. I don't know if it's called Taboo. I can't remember. But basically, you're given like a limited amount of words, And you have to, yep. Oh, it is taboo? Okay, yep. So I love that game because you're giving a vague description and you have to literally say what the word is that that person is trying to describe. But the person trying to describe it is given limited words. And then they're having a time limit too. So you got that pressure of like, man, I gotta, come up with this word. And if I say this word, and I hate the buzzer. Because every time I say the word on the card, it's just, and my wife likes to blow it in my ear and it drives me crazy. But it's like, it allows you and teaches you to adapt and think on your feet. Because you're given a certain amount of time and you feel that constraint, you feel that pressure, and you're also given vagueness and you're given little to nothing to work with, but you have to think outside the box and you have to allow yourself to think outside of whatever is the current circumstance in order to, find the right answer. And that's basically what freestyling is. It's adapting to any given situation at any given time. And so another thing that I would also like to point out is collaboration. Hip hop is rooted in community. Freestyle and cyphers are collaborative art forms where everyone contributes to the collective experience. This teaches us the value of diverse perspectives. When we engage in conversations that embrace different viewpoints, we amplify our creativity. And so I think about the cypher, right? And I think about, how each person was talking about what was going on in their life, what was going on in their day. And some people was rapping about political things or things that was happening in their environment, things that was happening around them. And what I love most about it is that you get fresh perspectives, you get new ideas, and you get new values and diverse opinions about life in general. You're not meant to be in this world alone. You can't be around yes people that are just going to tell you what you want to hear, or people that align and agree with your already, preconceived notions and values and opinions about life. One of the things about being here in this country is that you have the freedom to think for yourself, but you also have the freedom to hear other people's opinion, other people's ideas, other people's perspectives. And whether we agree with them or not, sometimes when we hear another person's perspective, it might spark an idea, or it might spark a change in mindset, or we might get something and take something from that we can use in our daily lives. And so never be afraid to broaden your horizons when it comes to conversation. So believe it or not, we all freestyle in our daily lives. Anytime we are actively living in the present moment, we are freestyling because we're not thinking about what we're going to say, what we're going to eat, what we're going to do, how to solve this problem, how to solve that. We're not thinking about the past or the future. We're simply just existing. And so how can we integrate freestyling more in our everyday lives that produces new patterns of thought? The first thing I want to touch on in ways in which we can do that, and I learned this the first day I went to the cypher, was learn to let go of control. Practicing mindfulness is not just meditation or simple breathing. It is accepting the fact that you do not exist in the past or the future, and that the only thing that truly matters is the right now. When we accept that you have no control over what will happen or what has already happened, you open yourself up to the unexpected. And sometimes the unexpected ends up being better than the expected. I remember, I used to, when I struggled with anxiety, and I would still go to cyphers, but I didn't put the two together. And it wasn't until my wife was telling me I was anxious one time. I was on the verge of having a panic attack, and I'm like huffing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. My mind's thinking about 1,000 different things at once, and I'm like thinking about all this negative stuff. And I've created like this impossible wall in front of me in my mind, and I don't know how to get over it. And my wife was just like, be in the present. And she was like, I'm a huge, how many people Marvel fans? Y'all Marvel fans? So y'all know about the multiverse thinking. Hey, welcome, brother, for sure. Good to see you. Y'all have ever heard of the multiverse theory, right? Like when in the Marvel, where you got these multi-universe, and Thanos snapped his fingers, and they, half of the universe was erased, so they had to travel to another universe and you know what I'm saying? And my wife, she's a big Marvel fan, so she was like, when you are living in the past or living in the future and not living in the present moment, which neither one of those exists, by the way. Like, we think that we know what's going to happen based off of what already happened, or we think that, because of what already happened, then our life is going to be this. Like even this fly that's flying around my face, I'm like, this fly hits and, touches me and get on me, my skin going to break. I'm thinking about all that stuff. But when we do that, guess what? We are living in a separate universe that is not in this current universe. And how many of y'all know the power of thoughts? Like they say, it's power in the tongue, it's power in thoughts. There's a way to manifest and bring into reality what you are actually thinking. And so that's why your thoughts are so important, because what happens when you're thinking about something that is in the future, or you're thinking about something in the past and not in the present, you're literally bringing that thing into reality. And then when it does happen to you, you're like, see, I knew it was going to happen. Yeah, because you brought it into existence. Because you're thinking about it so heavily and so much that it literally, you shape it into your reality. And then it becomes a part of your life. We're like ink, in a water cup. We can be dyed any color. So be careful in which you choose to let invade inside of your mental space. Be mindful and be conscious of your thoughts. And the best way to do that is to understand that you have no control in certain circumstances. That there's no way to change the future. There's no way to change the past. It doesn't exist. And so think about what you can do in the present moment. And that will allow yourself to open yourself to ideas, new perspectives, and new ways of thinking that can lead to kaleidoscope, beautiful patterns of thinking. And then you might find the answer that can actually change your future in a positive way, rather than making sure and guarantee that your future ends up negative. Another thing I like to bring up is change your routine. Try to shake things up. Take a different route to work. Try a new hobby or a new game. Change the way that you interact with people. Maybe try going out to different places. Because small shifts can lead to big breakthroughs. When you change little things in your life, you might actually find that, okay, my perspectives is changing. My outlook, my outward look in life is changing. And that might allow you to actually find the breakthrough that you're looking for to the situation that you're going through. When my wife is going through something, the first thing that she loves to do is, like, especially when something happened that hits heavy, when there's a death in the family, or there is something that just feels like, oh my gosh, this is so much. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel so hurt. I feel just all these different waves of emotions. She'll go and she'll clean. Like, I'll come home one day and she's just cleaning everything. She'll clean it. And I always used to be like, why she like cleaning? Like, to me, if I'm going through something and I'm depressed, I'm staying in the bed. I'll be honest with you, I'm not moving, But she's like, I gotta move, I gotta change, I gotta shift, I gotta rotate something around. And she'll literally find the answer to her problems, or she'll find that she feels better and has a new perspective just by moving a coffee table, or moving a bed around, or changing something. Like, a change in environment can do wonders for you. Next thing I like to talk about is embrace a growth mindset. Adopt the belief that you can develop your abilities through dedication and hard work. When you see challenges as opportunities for growth, you become more resilient and adaptable. I want to talk about this story that hits home with me. It's the story of David versus Goliath. And no, I'm not going to preach, I promise. But the story of David versus Goliath, to me, I know a lot of people have heard it, whether or not you read the Bible or not, you hear it all the time. He took the slingshot, the rock said, boom, and then the dude was dead, big giant. But the thing that stands out to me about that story is not that David slayed a big, massive giant. It's what happened before then. Like, the children of Israel, if you read the story, they were terrified when they were in front of this giant. This is a big guy, you know what I'm saying, tall as can be, and they were quivering in fear, to the point that where they looked at this giant and said, this guy is impossible. How can we beat this? And they were already looking at it as like, I can't do this. There is no way possible I can slay this giant. And then they were like, man, if only we had somebody that can slay this guy, we'll make him king. We'll make sure that he don't have to pay taxes, all of that stuff. So when David had came up, he wasn't even a part of the battle, but when he came up, he was like, hey, who's this giant? And they were like, yeah, we can't beat this guy. We're terrified, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no experience, no background in fighting and combat. He's never done war. He's never been in a war. But he looks at the giant. He's like, how much did you say I can get if I kill him? Sometimes when we have these thoughts that fill our head, we create these giants out of our own thoughts. We create these impossible hurdles, or that feels impossible to us. But what if you had the mindset of David? What if instead of looking at that giant and saying, oh, he's too big, he's too bad, I can't beat him, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I've never had this before, I've never done this before. Look at it as an opportunity, because your reward may come after you pass this test. Those thoughts that we create inside our head that's so big and so giant could just be the very thing that we need to overcome. So what if we looked at it with that same mindset of like, what's the reward I'm going to get after I pass this test? What's the reward I'm going to get after I slay this giant? Because the biggest thing is not the things that is in front of us. It's not the things that, that life throws at us. It's not even the people that tell us we can and can't do something. Our biggest weapon against us is our own thoughts. As soon as we make it up in our head that we can't do something, guess what? It's not going to happen. As soon as we make it up in our head that this is impossible, and we're never going to get through this, or I'm not good enough, guess what? That's exactly what we become. Because out of the heart, the mouth speaks. You know what I'm saying? So literally have that mindset and try to look at the situations that you got going on in your life as opportunities to actually thrive and to flourish and to grow. Easier said than done, I know, but I hope that helps. Seek diverse experiences. Step outside of your usual circles. Engage with different cultures, ideas, beliefs, perspectives. They all broaden your understanding and prepare you to adapt when faced with new challenges. For me, I always, love going to different poetry open mics. And the reason why I love going to different poetry open mics or just open mics in general, I love comedy, I love listening to all different types of music, is because I might hear something and I might absorb something that I can use later on in life. I might hear a new perspective or a new belief or, something that really sticks out to me. And I don't even know it yet. But it's kind of like what Maya Angelou would always say. People don't, they might not remember who you are, but they never forget how you make them feel. So deep conversations that broaden our horizons makes us feel something in our soul. Going to a cypher and hearing new perspectives, I feel something in my soul that sticks with me for the rest of my life. I can't tell you how many times I heard Spooky. And the first time I heard Spooky, that's another brother from the Cypher. The first time I heard him, the first thing he did was he mixed rock and roll or metal and hip hop together. And I was like, yo, I ain't never seen nobody do that before. And he was yelling and I was like, why is he yelling? And then I was like, oh my gosh, this dude is blending elements of different genres of music together that correlate with how he feels and who he is and in this extension of his soul. And go ahead. Oh, we got 5 minutes. Oh, bet. Okay, bet. I'm going to wrap this up. See, I told you I like to talk, you know what I'm saying? But I remember just sitting there looking at it. I was like, yo, that's dope. And so whenever I felt like I was in a frustrated situation, guess what? I would freestyle and yell at the same time. And that would help me get stuff off of my chest. Kind of like how people yell in the pillow and they're like, ah! They're like, I feel good. But literally when I start freestyling and yelling because I'm so frustrated and I don't know how to control my emotions, I just yell it out in a freestyle. I realized that sometimes I actually freestyle the answer to a lot of my problems. And I'd be like, yo, how did oh, snap. And I'm like, man, I'm so frustrated at work. I hate it. I wish that one day y'all could make it. If only y'all could capture the bread. I had to work instead, 1 to 5. Got me so effed up in my head. And then I get to a point where I'm like, oh, snap. I'm talking to myself. I'm working through my own, issues. It's like therapy for me. And so that really touched me. And then the last thing I want to talk about is celebrate failures. So in the world of freestyle, not everything in every rhyme is going to land perfectly. And it's okay. There's been times where, even in this speech, I was like, that didn't hit. It's not going to land. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Or there's been times where I'm freestyling and I'm like, dang, man, I missed that word. Or I could have said this differently, all that stuff. But that's not what it's about. It's in a culture where failure is seen as a stepping stone rather than a setback. And so when you look at your life and you feel like something's not right, things didn't go the way that I planned it. I had this outline in my head. I have this vision of my future, and it didn't work out the way I planned it. I had to take a detour, or I feel like life got in the way. Look at it as a stepping stone rather than something that's going to set us back. The one thing I love about being a part of a cypher and freestyling is that, to me, it's purely and objectively fun. And so when I'm thinking about, if I think about messing up, or I think about not saying that word right, or I'm thinking about how good my bar that I just said sounded, guess what? I done thrown myself off and I can't freestyle anymore. Now I can't do the very thing that I love to do. And so even if you feel like your passions or the things in your life is not taking you anywhere, continue working on them. Continue doing the things that you love, because you might have a detour in life. You might be taken off course. You might feel like everything is crumbling around you, but I promise you, it's going to lead you where you need to be in the end. So the last couple of minutes, if I have them, I want to bring a brother of mine. I got 2 minutes. Perfect. I want to bring a brother of mine. He is actually one of the leaders of the NC State Cypher University. I just want him to come up and tell us a little bit about the Cypher, what it means to him. And hopefully we get to see some of y'all here. You know, I know she moving to Alabama. I'm sorry. I can't, I'm talking your business. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Anyway, but please help me with introduce and give a warm welcome to my brother, Champ.
How's everyone doing? This is freestyling right now because I wasn't expected to speak fully on everything, but yeah, we have the Cypher here at NC State. Cypher University has been going for a while, 12 years plus strong. And everything he said about the Cypher is true in adaptability and how we can use the Cypher and the art of freestyling in the outside world. And every time somebody tells me like, hey, I can't do this or whatever, if you have a conversation, you're freestyling. You know what I'm saying? Because you didn't have a script when you started speaking to someone. You're going off of whatever they said, and it's just a natural interaction. Same thing with freestyling. I hear the beat, and whether I'm talking to the people that are surrounding me, or like Sean said, when sometimes you speak to yourself, that's just a natural conversation happening, and you just start speaking naturally, and that's how it flows. Something that's important to me, especially for me when ciphering, is knowing that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I listen way more than I speak. I talk a lot, but I listen way more than I speak, and people are usually impressed when I'm freestyling because they're like, yo, how'd you do it? I listened to everyone else that was speaking, and then it helped me collect my thoughts. And that's something just great to go about life with. When you're in rooms and you're around people, don't think about what you want to give out. Really take in what everyone else is doing, and then when you speak, if you bring up the things that they brought, now they're more inclined to listen to you because they realize they were heard. It's very important for people to feel heard. That's why a lot of people inflict pain upon themselves and others sometimes. It's a miscommunication because they feel that they are not heard. And that's an important part of the Cypher. People coming together to feel heard and feel appreciated. But yeah, so definitely make sure y'all come out to the Cypher and express yourself. It's very coincidental that it's the Freedom Expression Tunnel, but it really is a place for you to come and fully feel free and express yourself and be heard. I can let you know right now, if nobody else is paying attention, when you go out there and say something, I'm gonna listen. You know what I'm saying? We got a conversation between me and you. But it's a family out there. We built a real family brotherhood sisterhood of just a lot of artists coming together. And you don't even have to be an artist. You know what I'm saying? You could, if you're a student, you could have had a rough day that day, and you heard the beat, and you're like, you know what? I got something to say. You know what I'm saying? You don't got to be a rapper or artist. It could be anybody. Yeah, everybody has something to say, and whether you believe it or not, there's somebody willing to listen, that wants to listen. Yeah.
Let's go. Thank y'all so much again for just taking the time to hear just about the Cypher and how important it is to try to freestyle in everyday life. Because like you said, anybody can do it. Even if you're not rhyming or you're putting together a rhyme scheme, you're freestyling. Whenever you pivot, whenever you adapt, whenever you make changes in your life, you're doing it in the moment. We're living in the present moment. You're freestyling. Thank y'all.